All right, guys, so let's do chapter 23 here. And again, the purpose of this video is really more so for the purposes of, kind of recapping, going over the important stuff, the stuff that you're going to need to know for test purposes. So chapter 23 here starts on page 455. This is the land description chapter. It's by far probably like the least content-packed chapter in the book. But let's dive right into it, talk about the important stuff that you need to know for test purposes. In this chapter, it starts off with talking about legal description, right? And for the legal description of your land, where would you find the most complete legal description of your property, of your land? And you would find that in the deed. The deed, very simply put, is where you would find the most complete legal description of the property. Why does the deed have the most complete legal description of the property? It's pretty straightforward. The reason is because the deed is what transfers ownership. You got to know what you own. The first thing to write down is if they ask you on the test, where would you find the most complete legal description of property? You'd find that in the deed. And the deed is where you would find the most complete legal description of the property. Then it gets into things like surveys. And surveys is when you actually measure out your property, measure out your land. And a surveyor would do something like that to measure out your property line. Now, one of the main terms that is asked about in reference to surveys is we'll ask about encroachments. And encroachment is when a piece of the neighbor's property crosses your property line. So again, when a piece of the neighbor's property crosses your property line, like they build a fence over your property line, a shed over your property line, the eaves of a garage leak over your property line, hell, even a tree branch 100 feet in the air crosses over your property line. These here are all deemed to be encroachments. Because technically speaking, from a legal standpoint, your land goes all the way up to the sky and all the way down to the center core of the earth. So, your neighbor's tree branch at 100 feet in the air cross your property line, that's still said to be an encroachment in that case. Your rights, and that's something that I would write down. An encroachment, this is the definition, is when a piece of a neighbor's property crosses your property line. I always say think about this in reference to football. Anybody who watches football, when the defense, cross the line of scrimmage before the snap, they jump off sides. They say encroachment on the defense. Why? Because they jumped over the line. They went over the line, right? An encroachment is when a piece of the neighbor's property crosses your property line. And again, how would we find these encroachments? We would find them through a survey. And again, as I said, it could be 100 feet in the air because you technically own all the air above your property and all whatever mineral rights below the property. Your rights above the surface, we call those your air rights. And you can do whatever you want with them. You can sell them. You can lease them. You do whatever you want with them. Maybe you got a property that borders the highway. High traffic area, and a billboard company approaches you and says, hey, we'd like to buy your air rights because we want to put a billboard up here. You say, sure, I'll give you my air rights, no problem. How much are you willing to pay me for that? You could sell your air rights, you could lease your air rights, do whatever you want with them. Same goes for your subsurface rights, your mineral rights. Maybe an oil company approaches you and says, hey, we'd like to buy your subsurface rights off you because we think we could drill oil and hit oil. Sure, well, how much are you willing to pay me? How much are you willing to lease it for? Things like that, right? So you can do whatever you want with those. You technically, from a legal standpoint, because this is, talking about land description, your land is not just the Earth's surface. Your land's the Earth's surface, having everything all the way up to the sky, then the center core of the Earth. Above the surface is your air rights. Below the surface, we call those your mineral rights. Okay. And next here, we get into meets and bounds description. So as far as a meets and bounds description is concerned, what exactly do you have to know about this? Meets are directions and angles, and bounds are the boundary lines of your property. So like in a meets and bounds description, here's the key giveaway for it that I would write down. If you guys ever see them talking about starting point or point of beginning, again, that's starting point or point of beginning, they're giving it away that it's a meets and bounds description. A meets and bounds description always both starts and also ends at a set point of beginning. Again, it is always going to start and end at a set point of beginning. It's going to say like starting at the telephone pole on the front right corner of the property, then going northeast a certain amount of degrees for a certain amount of feet. Then going northwest a certain amount of degrees for a certain amount of feet. Then going south, east a certain amount of degrees, certain amount of feet, back to the point of beginning. The meets and bounds description will always both start and also end at a set point of beginning. So if you see them talking about starting point or point of beginning, they're giving it away. It's meets and bounds description. And again, bounds just the boundary lines of your property. Like, who are you bounded by? Like on the east by lot 4, on the west by lot 5, lot 6, on the north by Park Street, on the south by Main Street. Something like that. That could be an example as well. So, again, meets and bounds description. Meets are directions and angles, bounds and boundary lines of your property. Most important thing I would probably write down for this is that they always both start and also end at a set point of beginning. Then bottom left here of 455, it talks about monuments. Now, what are monuments? Monuments very commonly could be used as points of beginning. What a monument is a physically identifiable land location. So if on the test they were to ask you, like, which of the following would best describe a physically identifiable land location, we would call that a monument. So a monument, simply put, is a physically identifiable land location. It could be natural or man-made. It could be a telephone pole, a surveyor's stake, a surveyor's nail. It could be a tree. It could be a boulder. Monuments, simply put, physically identifiable land locations. And then you'll see in the top right here of 455, it talks about benchmarks. Benchmarks used to determine elevation. Now, a benchmark is not just like placed on the wall and says, all right, here's 4 feet. I'm like 4'1". No, I'm not that short. I'm pretty damn short, though. But anyway, a benchmark is placed on the wall, and it says something like, is not placed on the wall, I'm sorry. A benchmark, measures the elevation from like the front to the back of the property. Like it dropped by, 5 feet in elevation. It rose in, 6 feet in elevation, whatever the case may be. Benchmarks, the thing to write down for them is elevation. If they ask you what measures elevation on like a survey, benchmarks. Benchmarks measure elevation. And on page 457, it talks about some other types of legal descriptions. Now, there's all different ways you could legally describe property. Now, if you're advertising a property, you're telling somebody to meet me at lot 3, block 4. No, you're telling somebody to meet me at 123 Main Street. Meet me at 321 Main Street. Meet me at 16 Park Street, right? Something like that. There is all different ways we can legally describe properties. The one that we most commonly use in real life is a street address. But you could have them ask questions like, which of the following are types of legal descriptions? You could have street address, tax identification numbers, lot and block, meets and bounds. These are all different types of legal descriptions. There's a lot of different ways in which you can legally describe property. Those are a few of them right there. So again, as far as legal description is concerned, a lot of different ways in which you could legally describe property. Again, 4 in particular: lot, block, street address, meets and bounds, tax identification. Those would be 4 main ones, I would say. If you go to page 462, on the right side here, it talks about the government survey system. So in reference to the government survey system, what exactly do we have to know about this? So for the government survey system, the number one thing that we have to know is that we do not use it in New Jersey. We do not use the government survey system in New Jersey. This is used in other parts of the country, and to give a little quick background on it, as the country expanded westward, they needed to find ways to chop up these lands. What they really did is they chopped them up into big rectangles, which were further divided into squares, which were called townships. We don't have to know the historical background of it. The number one thing by far to know about it is anything that goes along with the government survey system, we don't use in New Jersey. We do not use the government survey system in New Jersey. There's one particular measurement that is very commonly associated with it, called a, is it bolded in the book here? I want to see, yeah, no, it's not bolded in the book. I was going to try to highlight if it was. A quadrangle. A quadrangle is a measurement that they use in the government survey system. We don't use that in New Jersey. So if they ask us, like on the test, which measurement do we not use in New Jersey? We do not use quadrangles. Quadrangles are not used in New Jersey. Again, the government survey system, which you can also call the rectangular survey, we don't use this in New Jersey. Anything that goes along with it, we don't use it in New Jersey. And as you'll see on page 463, it talks about how many square feet happen to be in an acre. There is 43,560 square feet in an acre. Sometimes that might just be a question. How many square feet are in an acre? 43,560. Sometimes, though, they'll ask about it in reference to a math question. I'll give you guys an example here. We'll say something like this. You got a rectangular lot. The frontage is 220. It's a 1.3 acre lot. What's the depth? And that is the only information they'll give you. We'll say again, you got a 1.3 acre rectangular lot. The frontage is 220 feet. Let me just type in feet here. What's the depth? Now the math here is actually pretty simple. You just got to make sure that you know how to do the math, right? You know how to even get to that point. So for this here, again, if I got a 1.3 acre rectangular lot, front is 220, finding the depth. Number one, I got to find the area of this rectangle. To find the area of this rectangle, I do 1.3 times 43,560. That's how many square feet happen to be in an acre. So 1.3 multiplied times, clearly, multiplied times 43,560 would give me 56,628 square feet. Okay, the area here is 56,628. Now, if I divide this by 220, I would find the depth. If I do 56,628 divided by 220, it would give me 257.4. And that's your answer. The depth here is 257.4. Again, the math is really simple. I just do 1.3 acres times 43,560. That gives me the area of this rectangular lot, 56,628 square feet. All I do is divide that by 220, and it gives me the depth. The depth in this case, 257.4. And obviously on the test, you can use a calculator for these things. So again, to ever find this out here, all you do, very simply, you find the area of the rectangle, you divide it by the frontage, and it'll give you the depth. It'll spit out the depth here. The depth here in this case, 257.4 feet. That's a quick little recap of chapter 23, all the important stuff that you need to know in order to properly prepare yourself for the test, both the school and state exam. As always, you guys have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out or comment below, and I'll be sure to get around to those. And hope this helps you for the test. All right, thanks guys, appreciate it.